Hey everybody, welcome to the Mason's Lodge. This playlist is where I am going to focus on how to make realistic rock and stone for your dioramas. Now, I've just recently started working on my first casual project for Castle Nerd. And I quickly have learned there's a lot of things that I don't know about making castles or the planning of the project, anything, doesn't matter. There's a lot of stuff there I don't know. But being a super annoying perfectionist that I am, I don't like to dive head first into things. Not a big fan of surprises. I like to find out where I'm going to fail and fail big. So I do a lot of reconnaissance. I do a lot of research, a lot of pre-planning, kind of figure out where those things, those failures are going to happen and what to look forward to. Not so that I don't fail, because I will, but it's so I know so I know that it's coming and I'm not surprised by it. So before I commit to actually making any castle walls in the real world, I wanted to do a few test samples that kind of focus on the stone size, the rock size, color, texture, painting, the different wall layouts. That's what I kind of wanted to get an idea of what I have to look forward to. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these samples, and I'm going to show you the one that we're going to be working on today. Does it feel like you're at Home Depot right now? No? Well, welcome to my table of walls. These are the ones that I did as my test samples for my castle project. I did them because I wanted to get a good sense of what's going to be involved with all these walls. What does the stone look like? What's the color of it? How is it put together? What can I expect in terms of problems and struggles? And basically, I've learned a lot from all these projects, which ones I like, which ones I don't. Today, we're going to be focusing on this one. This piece here uses what they call rubble stone and ashlar dressing here on the sides. Ashlar basically is smooth cut stone that goes either onto a corner, or an entire castle could be built with that as well. And all of these stones here are individually cut and placed. It was a lot of extra work, but I wanted to try that technique to see what's involved. So let's go ahead and get started on this project, and let's see where it takes us. Step one, in order to make something out of foam, you need a piece of foam. So here I'm cutting a section that I'm going to be using for the rubble wall. What is the enemy of pink foam? What is its kryptonite? What is the stuff that they use in the movie Alien to dissolve the hard steel flooring in the spacecraft? Yep, that's right, acetone. And if it's not used properly, it will absolutely destroy whatever you're working on. But it also got me thinking, what if this acetone could be used in a less harsh manner to create some really cool textures that you couldn't get anywhere else? And that's why I started thinking maybe I could use it to create some really cool textures for stone and rock. So far, the best way I've seen to use this acetone and use it gently is to make sure that the brush is not oversaturated with the acetone. That's why I'm constantly dipping it in acetone and then rubbing off the majority of it on a rag or a towel. I did end up doing acetone on both sides of the block because I was going to split it in two, because I did need quite a few little foam pieces to be the rock. And I acetoned the sides, which I didn't really need to do, but I'm doing it anyways. So I would say there's really only two minor drawbacks to using this technique with the acetone. One is it could be hard to manage and wrangle depending on how much you use. But the second part is sometimes the acetone, if you use a little bit too much, can burn the foam. And that's what you're seeing here in these dark purple areas. It almost creates like a skin on there. And that skin has to be actually picked off, because if you try to paint on top of it, the paint will adhere to it. But that purple stuff is not adhered to the foam anymore. and could flake and fall off, leaving your paint with holes in it. After the acetone, I'm going to split this block in two because I want to get the most amount of rocks out of this block. This step was absolutely useless and unnecessary, but I left it in because I ended up drawing all the stones on the back of it, and I didn't want you to wonder why was it all cut up. Now you may be questioning why I'm drawing the stones on the back and not the front, and that would be a good question. This technique involves me drawing the foams from behind, cutting them and then snapping each one of the rocks and stones off. So it creates a rough edge on the front surface, not the back surface. Now the next step of cutting out these stones involves cutting around them, but not cutting all the way through the foam. Because again, like I said, I want to make sure that I can snap each one of these pieces out. You can use an X-Acto knife, but here I'm choosing to use a wood burning tool. It goes a lot faster, makes life a lot easier. Here you can get a good look at the surface side of the rock and the back side of the foam, so you get a good idea how everything is still attached. So I left this part in. It's absolutely not relevant to the final project here, but the blocks of the foam, or the thickness, were a little bit too thick, so I had to slice off a little bit of that thickness, and what was left over were these really interesting little sheets of stone. They were barely connected with little strings of foam, and I just thought they were kind of cool because they could almost be used to wrap around cylindrical objects or balls or something. Now, the whole point of this technique is that I'm trying to make the rock surface as rough and as natural looking as possible. And if I were to just cut the blocks with an X-Acto knife right down to the surface, the edges that may or may not be exposed when gluing them down, if I cut them with an X-Acto knife, they would look really clean. But this technique, I'm snapping them, and I'm snapping them towards the front, and that creates kind of a rough surface on the front part of the foam, making it look more natural. Now I've got my little bowl of goodies that I can use to build my wall with. But before I build that wall, I have a little side project. I want to create some wooden blanks that I can use to build these sample test walls on. This way they're going to have a little bit longer lasting durability to them. I made a couple extra for future walls. Here I'm just creating a little paper template that's going to be for the ashlar stones, the ones that are going to go on the corners of the building. You can see it here. That's what this part is. Now that I've got the ashlar blocks laid out on the ends, I also wanted to go ahead and fill in the blank areas with more horizontal reference lines. Not that I was going to follow them, but I wanted to make sure that when I was laying the stones, they didn't get all off track. Since the ashlar stones are smooth, I did need to create some different foam blocks for that. I decided to use a wire brush to kind of create some pitted texture, and I also used the rock itself to kind of add a little bit more depth to it. I had this block was actually two-sided. I was going to try two different types of texture just to see which kind of one that I like the best, but I think ultimately I probably used too much texture on both sides and should have made the stones a little smoother, but what I did was actually make them a little more antique or old looking. So I guess it worked out, but who knows? Here I'm cutting down the ashlar block's thickness. I had to compare it to the average height of the rubble stones that I had made because I didn't want one sticking out a lot higher than the other one. I wanted to be them fairly comparable in height, so that's what's going on right here. Now that the ashlar blocks are cut in length, I'm going to cut them down to individual sizes. One of the things that I thought I was being clever on was roughing up the edges with the rock. I thought it did a really, really good job. I was very happy with it, but ultimately I messed up here because ashlar blocks are supposed to be really, really sharp edged and close together, neither of which I did in the final piece. So the glue that I chose to use for this was the Hot Wire Foam Factory Styro glue. I thought maybe using white glue or PVA glue was going to be easier, but for some reason it seems like the white glue takes forever to dry because the foam is non-porous. So I thought maybe I should use something that would definitely dry. Now comes the joy of gluing or laying one stone at a time. I use those reference lines again just to make sure that everything is staying horizontal. I'll just let the rest of it play out so you can watch the stones go in one at a time. Hopefully you can see from this perspective why I use the acetone to create a lot of very unique textures and a lot of highs and lows in the surface of the foam. Like I mentioned before, one of the disadvantages of the acetone is the fact that it burns the surface of the foam. Here you can still see there's some remnants of the purple stuff, and unfortunately you do have to get it off before you paint, because if not, the paint will flake off. Just taping up the board here so I can paint without getting anything on the wood. And so begins the great painting process. I started off painting it a gray color because that's where I think I was going. But I decided that I wanted to do more of a tan color. So I painted over all that gray and started off with kind of a light warm, it says warm gray, but it's more kind of a light tan color. At this point, it's just about putting on layers and layers and layers of very wet paint. I find what's working for me is that the paint is really watered down. The more watered down it is, the lighter it dries, meaning that you don't have a heavy layer of color on there because the differences in the colors of stone can be very subtle. I know there's a lot of colors and variations in stone, but I'm finding that when you put on a more watered down paint, those colors have a tendency to kind of show through, but they're very subtle. Just to step in on this painting process, if you don't think I'm not going to mess this up, you're wrong. I do mess this up. Now that the base layer of painting is down, I want to seal the whole thing with clear matte acrylic. That way, when I do use the grout for the mortar, that the color of the grout won't stick to or change too much the painting color of the foam wall that I've done already. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit wrong about that. It still does leave some residue of the color on the grout behind. Hopefully not too much, but what are you gonna do? Now that the grout is dry, I feel a need to go back in and repaint some of these stones so that maybe they stand out a little bit more. I'm starting to realize that maybe I shouldn't always follow my feelings because I think maybe I overdid it, made some of the stone walls too dark. There was a lot of play back and forth of darkening and lightening and darkening and lightening. And but ultimately I think I made it too dark. So then I went back with a lighter wash, lighter color, more of a muted color to kind of tone it all down again. Here I'm just adding a little weathering variation to the stone. You know how when you see kind of like the lime build up or whatever makes stones kind of lighter in color, that's what this is here. I gave ChatGPT a finished photo of the actual wall that I created to see what it could come up with. And it gave me this cool little sample of a castle wall using the exact layout of the stone wall I gave it. So what's the moral of this story? What did I learn from this how-to video on a rubble wall with ashlar dressing? 1, don't listen to my feelings. 2, I way overpaint stuff. I think that I'm kind of digging myself a hole sometimes that I think that I could get out of, but not necessarily can. So I have a tendency to overpaint. And 3, the ashlar stones, looking at some samples after I had done what I had done, the ashlar stones, those the smooth carved stones, they need to be tighter. They need to have sharper edges and they need to be closer together. There's not a lot of grout in between those. So that's my takeaway for this how-to video. Hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.